Hello, everyone. It's me, Tim. Today, I want to talk about the 6 demos of Fallout. Someone left a comment last week and asked about something about the Fallout demo, and I almost said which one because I remembered us doing a couple. I remember we're going on almost 30 years ago that Fallout started. It started in 94. And I could remember a couple, but I've taken all my notes for Fallout. All the paper notes from Fallout are now digitized. So I have 86 pages of notes. And this is with not one note per page. This is them compressed. Some of them are just a single line. It's something I'd written down, to remind myself what to say when I went into a team meeting. Some of them were things that I wrote down in a journal when I'd go home and I'm like, oh, today was a bad day, or today was a great day. So I was curious if I had information about the demos we made, and I did. The word demo appears 42 times in that 86 page document, and it turns out we made 6 demos over the development of Fallout. This is an interesting video today because to really understand it, there are 3 other videos that you should watch first. The one I talked about, the creation of Gnaw, the OS abstraction library, the one I did on randomness, and the one I did on crunch. Because all of these come together. This is a good example of a video that will make more sense if you know the context of a lot of things I'm talking about. So I'm going to walk through all 6 demos. The first one was purely internal. We made it in November of 95. It was requested by the admin. By the way, all the rest of the demos were requested by marketing. So we made it in November of 95. Remember, we'd only been working on this maybe a little over a year. Year and a half, if you count the 6 months I was by myself, which you probably should. So, year and a half. I looked at my notes on this. I had 3 notes about this demo. So, I don't even remember what area of the game we picked, and I don't think we did. I think we made a unique map for it. And I know we wanted to show the flamethrower off. Alan Pavlish, the executive producer, the only note I have is complained it runs too slowly. I'll do a video on optimization. This was way, way too soon into a game's development to even think about optimization. So I just wrote that down. I didn't plan to act on it for at least another year. We also showed it to a reporter from Next Gen magazine, and I didn't write down their name, but I did write down they said they loved it. When is this coming out? And I was like, years. So I don't know who that was. I do have a note that Brian Fargo liked it, and he said that the death animations were especially good, which is interesting considering that was one of the things that Steve Jackson Games originally liked, and then later claimed that they thought were too over the top in the game. So the second one, and this is the other one I remember making 2. This is one of them. We made one in May of 1996. So this would be about 6 or 7 months after the last one. We made it for E3. And what was especially exciting about this demo is it was both a playable demo and a self-playing demo. This is where, having to watch a couple of my previous videos, because I'm just going to gloss over stuff. If you remember what I said about Gnaw, the OS abstraction library, that was responsible for writing everything out on the screen, but also took in all the input. It took in mouse input, keyboard input. It could do joystick input if you wanted it to. All of this stuff went into Gnaw's input event system. Turns out it was very simple for me to record those inputs. I could do timestamps of when they came in and what the input was. So it was very easy to make Gnaw play back that recorded input. I thought this would give us a self-playing demo, but I forgot random numbers. So you may play it again, like let's say you were playing and you shot someone and they died, and then you went to replay that level from the recording, you'd shoot them, but maybe you rolled a lower damage and they didn't die. So I fixed that by when Gunal was told to begin a recording, it generated a random seed, saved that at the very beginning of the recording, and seeded the random number generator with it. So from then on, that random number generator created a deterministic list of pseudo random numbers. And this worked great. I remember we had 2 maps in this demo. I didn't write down which 2 they were, but I said I had 2 maps, and it showed off the cool features. And these are the features I wrote down that we showed off: talking, bartering, killing people, and finding interesting items. I know it was a mini adventure where the players asked to go kill some rad scorpions in exchange for some items. So it might have been Shady Sands, but it might have been Junktown. And then we had a rad scorpion cave. And then when you came back and turned in the quest, they gave you some really cool items. This was intended for people who wanted to play for more than 30 seconds, because we found out a lot of people would walk up, play for about 30 seconds, and then walk away. If they continued, they got this quest and they could go off to another map on it. This also let us test our newly integrated script engine. So that was really cool. We got good feedback from that. There were bugs, but that's great. I mean, we've still got another 2 years to make this game, or a year and a half. The next one was made just a few months later in July of 96 for another conference called ECTS. We wanted to just use the old demo, but marketing told us, no, it has to be all new because editors were coming. I have no more information about this demo. Don't know what we made. Don't know what the feedback was. If I was told any feedback, I didn't write it down. All I know is we lost a few weeks to all of these. I'll talk about that in a minute. The 4th one was a non-interactive demo that was made for Computer Gaming World in August of 96. Now, at some point, and it was either this one or the next one, we decided to, instead of pre-recording the input and playing it back in the engine, that we would ship it as a movie. I think an AVI back then. This was decided, I mean, back then games were pretty small and the data we need to ship with was pretty small, and movies weren't that small. So we had to make a decision on, depending on how long it ran. If it was a long-running, non-interactive demo, it was cheaper to actually send the game with the bit of art that it needed and the pre-recorded input than it was to create a movie. But movies played more consistently, frame rate and all that, despite your hardware. So it was either this one or the next one that we went to pure AVI for the non-interactive movies. But this was the one, and this is important, this 4th demo, which was in Computer Gaming World in August of 96, was the first time that Fallout was described as a spiritual successor to Wasteland. That's what they called it on the CD. I do not know whether this came from us, or whether it came from marketing, or whether Computer Gaming World did that. But I'm 99% sure that it didn't come from us, the team. By this point, we weren't calling ourselves any kind of sequel or successor to Wasteland. We'd gone off in our own direction, and we tried not to use that terminology because we thought it would build false hopes in people. I was right, because this happened later in, we made Arcanum, and it was from this people who gave you Fallout. We made Outer Worlds. It's from the people who made Fallout. People generate a bunch of preconceived notions from that, but every time it's what marketing wants to do. And if you think, as a manager, I have a lot of control over marketing, you may be wrong. Also, I want to point out that this 4th demo, was almost entirely made by my assistant producer, Fred Hatch. In fact, I had a note, this demo would not have been possible without the heroic efforts of Fred Hatch. So he pretty much played the game repeatedly until he got a good playthrough. And then that was either, done as a GNOL recording or an AVI, I don't know. However, the next one, the fifth demo, was another non-interactive demo, which was made in October of that year. So again, a couple months later. This one was an AVI. I don't have notes on what it was used for, but I do have a note saying, I've put my foot down on no new demos. I've told marketing, quote, use what you have. We're trying to make a game here, unquote. They were mad. They were like, you don't understand. And I'm like, you don't understand. Every single time we have to make a demo, we lost weeks. Sometimes a couple weeks. For one of them, I list 8 weeks being lost in our schedule because none of these demos were planned. Nobody told me in 1994, you're going to be making 6 demos. And if you think I had any say in these, I was like, we're not making any more. That lasted for about 6 months because we made one more demo. This is the one everybody talks about when they say, did you play the Fallout demo? Even though there were 5 before this and they were available publicly, well, except the internal one. The one that people are usually talking about is the one that we put online in April of 97. We made an interactive, fully playable demo. It worked on PC on both DOS and Win 95, and we had a Mac version. So there were really 3 demos. We also put the opening cinematic movie because we got that done pretty early. And if you had the demo and the movie, then when you ran the demo, it would also play the movie before it went into the demo. Otherwise, you could play the movie by itself. The map was Junktown. Pretty much laid out the same, if not similar. But the story was completely unique. And we did that for a number of reasons. We didn't want to give away any of the storyline that was going to be in the game. Also, since the quest we wanted you to go on had to be on that map, we didn't want to include a lot of other maps because we were trying to make this demo as small as possible because it was going to be downloaded. I think our goal was 20 meg or smaller. So we made our own storyline so we could reduce maps and art, which was what took up all the space. A week after we put it up, we made another non-violent version. And ostensibly this was so it could go to countries where our game was deemed too violent. But the other reason we did it was the non-violent version had far fewer death animations, which reduced the size again. Keep in mind, some of those death animations, people would explode or they'd run on for a while. They were long. They added to that 20 meg of size we had. So, one last thing I want to talk about is how doing these demos added to our crunch. I'm not going to say that this was the only source of crunch in Fallout. There were a lot of sources of crunch. But this certainly was a big source. We made 6 demos, none of which were planned, and none of which I was told about when I started. By the way, I was never trained, never received one training lesson on how to manage a project, how to manage a team, how to be a leader, how to do project management in, that was called Microsoft Project, which was a nightmarish program that supposedly let you track tasks and stuff. Things have gotten way better lately. But let me tell you that every single time one of these demos was brought up to me, it was urgent and important. And I was told it had to be done. I had no say. It wasn't until the 5th demo that I think is when I put my foot down and said, these have to stop. What killed me was months later, sometimes after we had done several of these demos, when I would have a meeting with my boss or my boss's boss, and I said, yeah, the schedule has been impacted by these demos. They're like, no, you can't do that. These demos are required, but yeah, you can't let it delay the game. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do that? I was told to deal with it. So part of the reason, I wanted to talk about demos is if you go back and look at the video on Gnaw and the video on randomness and the video on crunch, these 6 demos are an indication of a perfect example of all those videos. The how Gnaw really helped us in tight, spots like having to make a non-interactive demo. how randomness came into play, because I thought just playing back the same input, wouldn't that give you the same playthrough? No, because of randomness. And how crunch is just sometimes out of my control. I was the topmost manager inside the team of Fallout, yet I could not control for things like demos. You could say, well, we should have just not made them. Well, why don't you go on Moby Games and look at the number of Interplay games that had a producer that's only mentioned one time? Those were producers who tried to buck that system, and they went away. So there were sources of crunch that were beyond the control of the team. They happened at levels above us and not direct managerial levels. So somehow marketing was allowed to say, spend 8 weeks to make a demo, but we're not going to be responsible for your budget or your schedule. Deal with it. Anyway, I hope you guys like just this bit of history about how there were 6 demos about Fallout.